We are here to talk about digital media programs at the library, and we are so excited to be joined by Juan Rubio, the Library Digital Media Learning Program Manager. Hello, friend. How are you?
Hi, Jonna. Thank you for having me here and talk about the programs at the library. I lead the digital media and learning programs at SPL. And my programs are designed to create opportunities for young adults, families, youth, teens, and other kids to learn about computational thinking, about design thinking, the use of technology, be technology fluent. Some of the programs that we have in place are a kids team with the University of Washington, a virtual reality project also, and then we also have Finch's robots, e-textiles, a lot of programs that get at preparing kids for the modern use of technology.
You know, you've worked for the library for quite a few years now, and it's just been wonderful to watch I would call it the trajectory of how the program has evolved. You know, originally you were working with kids and teaching library staff to even start to think about digital literacy and digital literacy skills, all the way to now you are working in partnership with UW and other organizations to put together some amazing things. So what particular audiences do you hope to serve through the digital media learning?
Digital media and learning programs are designed to provide opportunities to the people in Seattle, but we are really intentional about bringing these projects to underrepresented population, minority populations, and then those communities that have not had access to these programs traditionally. Like you mentioned, I did started with being more focused on young people, but as it grew, we expanded to now have not only the young kids, but adults, young adults primarily, and then families as well. And then creating a community around the learning of digital media programs that is led by the Seattle Public Library.
You are the person that introduced me to virtual reality. You've done a number of virtual reality programs now. Let's talk more about the virtual reality project with UW and the Duwamish tribe, and then the special collections. We're going to show a clip of a little movie that was made earlier in the year, and then we'll come back together.
The river tells a story, and it tells the story of the Duwamish people and where the Duwamish are today. You look at the destruction of our people and also the destruction of our river, and that says a lot. It still tells the story about how people didn't honor the first people. They didn't honor the natural resources around them. The Duwamish River is here for good or for bad, and we belong to it and it belongs to us.
Virtual reality has primarily been used for commercial purposes or entertainment. With the virtual reality here at the Seattle Public Library, we wanted to use it in different ways, in ways that will enhance the special collections, bring it to life. So the way that this virtual reality project honors the Duwamish people is by showing how the river that is no longer there was an essential part of their life. The young adults that are helping us with the virtual reality project, they are undergraduate students from the University of Washington. You have to not only know how to do computer programming, but it involves graphic design, it involves physics, it involves translating physics to computer code.
When I first saw the application for this project, The bit that engaged me the most was the fact that it was going to be developed with virtual reality. So I had never really used it before and only had seen it played for like video games and stuff like that. So the idea of being able to incorporate virtual reality into a historical context working with the library, it provided the opportunity for such a meaningful experience, and it sort of bring the history of the native people and of the river itself to life to show a history that people may have not learned about in school.
When I put on those virtual reality goggles, the first thing I felt was gratitude. I felt overwhelmed by visually seeing how our people used to live and being transported back to that time. It was very emotional for me. You're in the canoe, you're going on shore, you're in the longhouse, you're cooking the salmon, you're eating the salmon. You're experiencing all those things in a very traditional way, in a setting that can only be imagined with your mind and in this virtual reality. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to be transported there. It is cool. It is cool.
Part of the reason why this project is so meaningful is because it sort of educates people about this history. It can make people more mindful of how the environment has been treated, how Native people have been treated, and how we can change how that works moving forward through history. Because there's still a lot that we can do. We can't really change the past, but there's so much that we can do to help the future. The Seattle Public Library Foundation has certainly helped me move closer to my dream because it's not only allowed me to apply the technical skills that I've been learning over time, but also develop greater interpersonal skills.
The history of the tribe has been devastation, dislocation, displacement, and this project has helped bring back a healing because it heals us to remember and to share our culture and to help educate people about our culture and to educate people about the river. Seattle Public Libraries is really honoring our people with this project.
For me, this project is really dear to my heart because it is touching many communities and many lives.
Oh, that was a great video. That was fantastic. I'm so struck by how Jolene's reaction, it was powerful, and how it recreated the experience for her. And certainly Terrell has some wonderful experience from this whole project and how it's opened his eyes to a whole new career. Can you explain how the students literally are involved in these projects, especially with the UW and the virtual reality? Talk about the programming, the graphic design, things like that, to give us a really tangible sense of what the students do.
So in the virtual reality project, we're working with several undergraduate students from two institutions. One is the University of Washington, LSAMP, it's a Louis Stock Alliance for Minority Participation. And then we're also working with the Academy of Interactive Entertainment. And the students in LSAMP especially, they are minority students who are interested in STEM programs, and they're pursuing STEM careers like computer science or informatics. And they become part of this internship where they are learning how to create for virtual reality. So we work with a developer from VR who is an expert that teaches these students from the university how to program. But in addition to that, I think that they benefit because they are part of the development team. So they're being exposed as a real world situations where they need to meet deadlines, they need to communicate and work on all aspects to create a successful project at the end.
A real world experience, really. We had a group of board members and supporters do a site visit with you where they actually saw some of your work in action and the unique learning opportunity that was going on. Can you tell us more about both the partnership with UW, why that's important, as well as what's happening with this learning and how's that all work?
I'm really glad that board members were able to see Kids Team in action. This is a partnership supported by an MLS grant with a collaboration between the University of Washington and the Seattle Public Library, where we are preparing pre-services librarians through a course that they take called Participatory Design in Libraries. So they come to the library to work with kids and to learn from them directly what will work or what will make their learning of digital media better. So they come in and then we are interested in having a democratization of the learning. So where the adults and the kids have an equal voice. And I think that's really important for the adults to understand how to engage in kids in ways that it's meaningful, impactful, but also for the kids to see how adults take them seriously, how their voice is really important, as important as the adults. And there's a lot that happens in Kids Team. There is this equal facilitation. The kids also facilitate during that learning experience, and not only the adult. There is designing by doing when they're all doing together. And there is the exchange of ideas, so proposing ideas. And we're very intentional and very careful to actually provide the same opportunity for both. The kid can provide ideas, but the adult as well. And what happens is that they are learning on how to problem solve, how to design, how to express opinions, how to communicate in good ways. And it's great. You have to come and see it if you can.
It's just such a reminder that, you know, traditional library, we think of the books, we think of the buildings, but there is so much more that is happening in the library setting, both as a cultural institution, but certainly as an education institution. But what I love about this, through your partnership, it's not just the kids learning, it's the adults learning, and that whole concept is pretty amazing. And you should be so proud of your work. I'm proud of your work.
Thanks, Jonna.
What's on the horizon for your program, and how's it working remotely? What's up?
So we are continuing providing learning opportunities now that we don't have the opportunity to meet in person. We're doing online programs. We are doing Kids Team that I mentioned before online. We meet every week to design and think about other programs. We're also continuing developing a new virtual reality project in partnership with the University of Washington Earth Lab and the Seattle Public Utilities. And this is going to be about sea level rising and how it's going to actually impact certain communities, especially the South Park community, and how people can learn about the things that we can do now to mitigate the effect of climate change in sea level rise. In Kids Team, we are creating now a program called El Biblio Bandido. This is a legend.
What? Tell me that again.
It's called El Biblio Bandido.
El
So
Biblio
it's Yeah, it's a character-driven program, and this character is really hungry for stories. And the only way that you can quench that hunger is by writing stories and giving it to this character. So we decided to build this, and then we changed it for the online program to have kids learn how to create stories for a community newspaper. So they're going to have some media literacy where they're going to learn what's a headline, what's a byline, what is a caption for an image, and how do you put together a story. We have several units. We have one that is called Local Heroes, where you're going to choose a hero in your community. It could be your grandmother who's great at making tamales, or it could be a community leader. And they're going to create this newspaper, and they're going to enhance it with paper circuits to make it come alive.
In addition to the individuals that you are serving, the kids primarily and kids of color because of the library's equity focus, what other audiences benefit? What are the kind of the ancillary impacts of the program?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we tend to forget other audiences that benefit from the programs at the library. And I was thinking the other day that, for example, the partners at the University of Washington benefit a lot, right? Because they learn on what it is to teach in an informal space, what it is to work really closely with communities. And the library is a hub of communities that come, and we have a wide reach, right? We have 27 branches around the city. So I think that's another benefit, right? They're learning about our practice as we also learn from them. And I think that research and practitioners partnerships are an incredible, rich programs that we can benefit from it. But also other libraries around the country, right, that learn from us, that we have a presence, for example, at the American Library Association, or when we go to a conference, and we're being contacted to share our experience of the program. So I think that's another benefit. And I will say also that pre-services librarians benefit from this, because with the program that we have at the University of Washington, MLIS students come to learn from us and do kids teams. So they're being prepared for a new way of engaging kids and see the library in a new light.
Oh, I love that. Even before they become librarians, SPL
Exactly.
is helping shape their world. So Juan, how is your program working with others to really advance the field of digital learning with libraries and in other libraries?
So one of the ways that our programs are helping the library community is when we connect with them in a national level through conferences, or as part of other grants, such as the Ready to Code grant. We became part of a cohort of librarians working on computational thinking. I did a program called The Slowest Computer, where we had to flip sponges to learn about computational thinking, about programming. And then people started hearing about that. And they contacted me, they still contacted me about like learning how I did it, what would they need to in order to do them themselves. And creating that community is for me really important, not only the community with other libraries in the country, but also the community here in Seattle, the young people, the graduate students, everyone. For me, is like one of the keys of the programs that we do.
I am so proud of the work that you have done and what you've done for the library, for our community. You've really been a leading edge when it comes to the equity work of the library. It's been the focus of your programs. And what really, I think, enables all of this is that your programs and your work have been funded by donors. And that commitment to helping the library do the equity work and the investment donors are making in the equity work through the library, it's going to make our world a better place. So thank you for the work that you are doing on behalf of the library, on behalf of the partners, the bigger library ecosystem, but as much as anything for the kids of Seattle who need it most. Well, hello, everybody. We're back. And if all goes well, I think Juan is going to join me here. And there he is. And Juan, I hear you might be having an audio problem. So, you know, the last time I had an audio problem, it was one of those crazy things that I had just turned down my laptop volume. So, well, Juan is working on that. I just wanted to take a second and say a couple things here. First off, we are so proud of the video that was shared about the Duwamish River Project. In fact, Soulcraft All-Stars, who's been our partner for creating this video as well as one they did for us last year, our good friend Aaron Strait and the talented folks of Soulcraft All-Stars has just done some great work for us. And this video was created originally for the Discover Your Library Luncheon, which was to be held back in March. And it was our second time around. And one of the things about doing a luncheon like that is it is a way to bring people together to celebrate the library. We raise money and we're able to share some interesting work about the library. And this is just one of those examples of where the project around the Duwamish River brought together Juan, his work, the team associated. It brought together virtual reality. And for those who have never experienced it, like my experience was the first time out, it is quite amazing and so real. And when we see the emotion of Doreen, we have the moment to just really appreciate her world. The other thing, so first off, shout out to Aaron and Soulcraft All-Stars. Now, we have an opportunity to ask a few questions or answer questions. And if you haven't already and you have any questions for us, please feel free to put something out in the Q&A. We also, I think we may have Juan back. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Ah, there he is. There he is. Well, first off, Juan, since we saw each other, my hair is shorter and yours is longer.
There you go.
There you go. So, while I have you, can you talk a little bit about your work, what you've been doing since we talked last, how the summer's gone? What have you seen happening across the city as the library is delivering summer learning experiences in a very different way?
Right. So for us, we moved to do Kids Team online. And that has been really incredible because one of the things that I talk about with people when they ask me about Kids Team online is that is my goal to still maintain this space of the library as an informal place where kids come and then they come to design in a very fun way, right? So I don't want the program to feel an extra thing because I think we all are dealing with a lot these days. So I want them to have the space where they come and they are really having fun. And then they're learning how to design with others. But it's my goal to still maintain that spirit of the library as this informal learning space. We continue doing virtual reality. We're pivoting to doing it with no contact restrictions that we have in place. So, but you know, it's moving along.
Wow. Wow. You know, so I've kind of lost track how long you've been working with the library, but I know it's been a while because I've worked with you, and the foundation has had the good fortune of really being able to support you and the work you're doing. And I think the one thing I'm especially proud of is you're not just doing this work for the library ourselves, but your greater community that has been formed around digital media learning. And I think the library, SPL is a leading library. You know, we've got our Library of the Year award for our equity work, but there is so many interesting things like the work that you're doing that is helping other libraries expand how they think about delivering services and what the community actually needs. And in all your career years of working in this area, what would you say has been the biggest, I guess, the changes that you have seen over the time?
At the library,
At the
or
library and working with kids and digital
with
media.
kids, yeah. I mean, I think that for me, it's really very important, these researchers, practitioner relationship that we have, the partnership that we have with the University of Washington. And when I think about the community in Seattle, I think in a broader sense, right? Not only the kids and the families that we serve, but also the students who go to university and are learning by coming to the library and doing this work with us and have like a real world experience. But also the researchers, that we learn a lot from them, right? Because they're doing research and it's very, you know, rigorous, and they're doing this ethnographic analysis and all of that stuff. And then they learn from us as well, right? Because they are coming to do this and see how this in practice happens at the library. And then they have this touch point with communities, you know, at just different branches at the library. So I think that involving kids in a way that it's more equal with adults has been a huge change for me, right? Where it's not like a top-down learning experience, but we are at the same level. We're learning together as opposed to you're learning from me.
Nice.
So that has been, you know, incredible for me to see that change in approach and methodology.
Well, you've shaped it. There's no doubt about it. Hey, I've got a few questions that have come in that I think I'll just jump into. Let me just start by this one in terms of how do the virtual reality exhibits take inspiration from special collections at the library?
Okay. So we do an exercise. It's a design sprint. And we all come together and we have several activities that lets us discover themes within the special collections. So we are assisted by a special collections librarian who give us a tour of the special collections, and from there many themes emerge, right? So the first one that we did was about the Great Seattle Fire, and that came from looking at material at the special collections related to that great event, you know, that significant event in Seattle. And the same thing with the Duwamish River, right? Like by looking at material and what had happened historically that was in that exhibit, virtual reality was inspired from there.
Nice, nice. Now there's a couple of questions about Kids Team. First off, how do students get involved in Kids Team?
The kids, the participants, the designers, I call them, the designers, they get recruited by the librarian at the different branches that we work. So one of the other things that I think is incredible about the library is the community connector, right, that librarians are. So the librarian connects with the community and they find kids who are interested or they will be really great into coming into that. So it's through the librarian at the branches that they get connected to the program.
Okay, okay. And then are there other library systems that have been starting to replicate that Kids Team type scenario, or is it really a UW-based project?
Right. So we were planning to move in these to rural libraries in Whitman County, right? But
Yes.
then things became suddenly very difficult because that was, and then we have certain roadblocks in terms of internet access in those rural areas, etc. So, but we're moving eventually, and then one of our plans is to disseminate what we've learned in 2021. That's one of the things that we really want to focus on. Is like we've been doing this for 3 years now. Let's open it up, and I think that the opportunity that of us going virtual has presented this chance for us to disseminate easily, right? Like, and so we're thinking about doing that in 2021.
It's an example of there's all the hard things, but there are silver linings, and things like such as doing something like this. It gives us the ability to share the library story and what's happening with a much broader audience. Another question we have from Linda is that the mention of the newspapers that the kids are doing, the literacy that comes with that. Are there examples to share? Are they the kinds of things that create a product that actually, is it more the experiential part, or what happens to that news?
So Kids Team is really interesting because what we do with them is we ask them, how is this working for them in terms of producing this newspaper? Is it working? Is it easier for you to do it? And then the resounding feedback we had was that were very hard, that they couldn't really, it was very hard. So we, with their help, which I think that's what is so incredible about it, it's that we're going to do Kids Team again in the fall with like 6 librarians, and we're going to take the suggestions that the kids had and then produce a new set of workshops that eventually are going to turn into the newspaper and the vision that we have. So we don't have anything to share yet because the kids have been working on like, how can we make this work for the second time.
Gotcha. Hey, another question here is, how do schools teach computational thinking the way the library does? Is there a correlation or connection, and are we filling a gap that exists in school curriculum, or how do they go together?
Right. I think that one of the things that we do at the library that is a little bit different is that, and what I do is that I'm trying to make this learning very tactile, very interactive, very hands-on, right? So you're a fan of the sponges, right? So we were learning computational thinking by flipping sponges, and other people call it like unplug computing, right? Because you're not using the actual hardware. So I think that that's one way we're filling that gap into making it again this informal, fun space where kids can feel a little bit more relaxed, I think, that in school.
Yeah. We've had when we did our last program, which was the State of the Library and Foundation, we had JK, who was the teacher, who's experienced the Global Reading Challenge. It was really incredibly touching how she described the role of library, whether her library or our library. And, so often at school, you're being told what to study. You have to do this, you have to do that. But creating that situation where the student can actually experience something they want on their own, it's a different kind of learning experience. And it does round things out in a really nice way. I have another question. This is a little bit around the foundation, and it's related to how does the foundation determine which library programs to fund, especially now that there's an increased need to shore up the safety in our physical buildings. And this is a lovely comment. The programs illustrated in this video are some of the deepest and richest I've seen. That is quite lovely. I can speak to a little bit about the funding and where the foundation fits in, because while private support is a very small, in terms of real dollars, a part of the library's program. It is the marginal investment in programs like Juan that truly allow our library to do things most libraries really struggle to be able to do. So when you think of so much of the equity work, or you think of things around beyond the traditional books and branches and having the doors open, almost all of those kinds of programs have some private support behind them. And we often think of or describe that marginal investment is what moves the entire public investment and allows our library to do so much more for the community that it just wouldn't be able to do otherwise. In terms of how grant decisions are made, the library really drives the strategy. They are the ones that are setting what they're trying to accomplish, what are they aiming for, how they want to do that work. And so we work with the library as part of their annual budget process to then figure out how we can support the things that are, still considered above and beyond, that add excellence and the margin of excellence to the library work. So that means deeper investments in collections, things that the library just wouldn't be able to buy as many copies of or as deeply into a subject area. Other times it can be enhancements to buildings where we have the opportunity to really take a building and turn it into a different kind of library space. And then our work with children's programming, all the traditional summer programs, what Juan is doing, all the way to humanities programming and things that you might just not expect from the library. Generally, those are donors' gifts that are behind them. And so the library drives the strategy, but we work with them to figure out what is fundable, what we can afford to do, and how can we align what funding sources we can find to enable the library to do that work. So thank you for that question. I have one more here for you, and it's around, so virtual reality. And again, that first experience with it, and you were there, it's like, it takes my breath away when I think about it. But I think of it as games and entertainment. And, what you've shown us here is you're bringing history to life, but you're also developing, helping kids develop skills and move beyond that. How do you see virtual reality starting to shape a society? Or where is it going to start to show up and plug in that we may not be thinking about?
Mm-hmm. So there are great, new applications to virtual reality in, for example, training in the medical field, or even in, I think Boeing uses it to train the engineers, right, to simulate things that otherwise will be very expensive and very risky to do in real life. You can imagine how a doctor can actually learn to do an operation without having the risk of working with a real person. But besides that, I think in terms of like a lower floor kind of approach, is like it has been used also for mental health, to help kids. For example, another work that we've been doing is with another partner at the University of Washington to begin to learn what makes teens relax, right? Like, what are the things that you can learn, because they're really stressed out, like they have a lot of pressure, teens. So how can we use virtual reality to create an environment that they can use to lower that stress level, is something that we also look into possibly develop.
Wow. So Juan, I'm sure you touch the lives of so many kids, and many of us here, supporters alike, have a library story. And I think what you are doing right now is creating a library story that is so lasting for every one of these kids. And when they grow up and they have their family and they realize, okay, library has to be part of my children's lives because it had such an impact on me. They'll think of you and all the other library staff that you have helped really further their work in new and in incredible ways. We are very, very lucky to have you part of our bigger team here. So thank you for it.
Thanks, Jonna.
All right. Well, with this, we're going to start to wrap up and just say, again, Juan, thank you for your incredible work. So much of what we talked about, it's donors that make it possible. And we're going to be doing one more of these inside your library. The next one will be related to mobile services, and we're going to have the Carrie Fox of Mobile Services give you another look at library and what it means for a different group of patrons. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. Juan, thank you again, and we will sign off, and good night now. Take care.
Good night, everybody.